It is 7 p.m. I will call the Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 board meeting to order. And I would ask the clerk to take roll, please.
Okay, trustee Brendan. Here. Trustee Mansell. Here. Trustee McGregor.
Here.
Trustee Mitchell. Here. Trustee Radke.
Here.
And trustee Taylor.
Here. Okey-dokey. We will rise now for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our many military people who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please be seated. I almost sat down early. My little gyration, trying to get my balance back. All right, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda for last week, February 14th meeting minutes and the monthly bills, journal entries, and vouchers.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
trustee Mitchell, second by trustee Radke. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, public comments on any agenda items. Eric, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Alrighty, moving on, there's no president's report. And we will move into our committee reports. The airport commission, we did not meet in February on the 2nd due to lack of agenda items. We only had one thing, so we decided to carry it over till this month. Police and fire commission met, but I don't see anybody here from there. Public works. Chairman Radke.
We met February 22nd. Update from Mr. Barkinson, our public works director. Snow plowing, no issues. Everything's going well. We have enough salt. Next meeting, we're gonna bring in bids for Second Street just for the, so we'll probably have a motion next meeting for to approve just the design work on Second Street. That's a project coming up 2024, but the design work would be done this year. The other thing is the Ashbourne disease. Our next meeting is gonna be March 22nd. And I'd invite everybody to come in. We're gonna have Jared Repsa here. He's our tree guy here in the village, so he'll be explaining a little bit of what's going on and some grant opportunities. So if you have some time, please stop in for that meeting. Other than that, everything is going well. Any questions?
When you say everyone coming in, are there being decisions considered for the trees?
They're just gonna be talking about a grant that's available and how many trees have the Ashbourne disease estimate in the village. And, you know, respectively, what it's gonna cost to cut these trees down and get them out. So, I mean, it's not a thing that we look at doing all in 1 year. It's probably gonna take the course of a few years, but there's some, if you drive around, there's some pretty bad diseased trees.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Anything from anybody else? Okay, thank you, Chairman Radke. Parks and Recreation, Chairman Mansell.
All right, we met February 22nd, talked about what things that are gonna be happening in the spring. The March 2023 calendar is out. We had a pretty long discussion on the Port Road Bike Trail, Walking Trail extension. This would be extending from the bike trail that goes up the highway here, just for a safe crossing over to Port Road. So the DOT does have some of those plans in the works right now when they redo the highway. We just need to kind of commit on our end to make that an actual walking path, not just crossing crossing the highway just to kind of like a dead end, if you will. So that we'd have to talk to some residents along that corner. And just because we're gonna have to widen that and edge of the road a little bit to make it an actual walking path. We discussed doing this project in stages, so it's not all at once. It's a little bit more cost effective that way, because eventually we will have to pave it. So that kind of goes into the motion, and then we can discuss it further. So I'll make a motion to approve the Port Road Bike Trail Extension and authorize the administrator to seek a request for a quote on engineering and design work for the trail from Lake Tender to Verbunker along Port Road to Fifth Street and rail crossing.
Second.
Chairman Mansell, have a second?
Second.
Motion by Chairman Mansell, second by trustee Grundon, discussion.
So I have a question.
Yep.
So the price is 50 to 100,000 eventually, depending on what it is. So supporting the motion, is it just to look for bids, or does that mean that if we pass that motion right now, that it's gonna be budgeted and
So I think
moving forward with it?
the motion would be to go out for bids, and then with understanding that we're gonna piece it out over a couple of years so we can plan for it. And then that initial cost, from the county funding was about $10,000, and Boz figured that's what would cover that first phase. So we really have an extended period of time to get the extra funding, look for grants, and stuff like that.
Is that 10 grand coming out of the parks budget?
It's from the county grant that we got. I think it's the Legis.
The only grant we got from the county was a $5,000 grant, and I thought that was for the kayak inputs. I didn't see a $10,000 one come in.
Yeah, I just had something.
Hold on, Lon. Sue, you had your hand up.
Oh, well, I'm not sure about that either. I
Right.
remember the discussion on that, and I thought that was other designated money from the county.
That's what I
Two.
thought too.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
Have not
too.
gotten it.
Oh,
So,
we haven't gotten it yet.
okay, and I
But it
don't know what
was gonna be
fund.
funded by the county to get that far.
Right, right.
Okay, Lon?
Yeah, I guess the only thing is, reading the motion over, I guess I have the same concerns that Chairman Saylor has, is are we obligated to go with the project? My understanding was when we had the meeting in Parks and Rec, it was to go out and seek bids. And if the bids were extremely high, then we would have to make a decision at that time. And just the way that this is worded, it's like we approve the bike trail extension and authorize. I think,
Right.
I think we're authorizing the administrator to go seek bids and bring it back to Park and Recs and decide if that bid, whatever the bid is, because there is some concerns about wetlands in there.
Cause that corner, yeah.
Sue?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, what are the stages? There was something about gravel in there, which
So the
I don't think
first-
I understood.
The first stage would be to take the gravel, well, we have to work on that corner by our property, because that's wetlands, so they'd have to work on that, and that's what the bidding for the engineer part is, I believe, the design part. And then the gravel, the walkway would be gravel first, and then we would come through and do asphalt later, once we would have funding for it.
Okay, I was
I-
wondering what, yeah.
I agree with Lon from the aspect, I don't think
I don't
that's what
like
we
the word.
planned on.
No,
It
don't
was
think so either.
basically what we talked about was, getting bids and then
Right.
bringing it to the board.
We
And
don't need a motion to get bids, do we?
that's what I'm confused.
I
about.
wouldn't
Because I thought we were
necessarily
getting
think
the
so.
Okay, I'm gonna gather it back in. Please ask the chair for permission to speak, to answer you, Mr. Trustee Saylor. No, we don't. With the confusion that's at stake right now, or that's being verbalized, the best thing we can do is to table it to a specific date, which I would think Chairman Mansell would be your next Parks meeting.
I'd be okay with that.
Okay, you retract your motion?
Yeah, I'll retract the motion and table it.
Trustee Grundon, retract your second?
Yeah,
Okay. I
absolutely.
didn't mean to cut anybody off, but
That's all right.
No, that's fine.
it was going nowhere, so we don't want to get into any trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, and that date is written down here, March 22nd.
22nd. Okay, then I'll email Boz just to clarify, 'cause it's not what I was thinking.
Thank you.
Other than that, the other, just make sure I have a motion. The other things we talked about was just some more park rules, sunrise to sunset. There's nothing really in the ordinances that specify that. And then update on the broken slide at Triangle Park. That was used, legacy money was used for that to replace that. And then new business, we discussed trying to synchronize the Easter egg hunts, because I guess there's a couple different groups wanting to do that, so trying to coordinate that so not everybody's doing it at the same times. So more to come on that. Rummage sale the weekend of May 20th. And then that first music fest at Ripple Creek would be May 18th. That's about it. Otherwise, yeah, March 22nd is the next meeting date. Anything else?
Any questions? Okey dokey. Thank you, Chairman Mansell. Chairman Mitchell, public safety, please.
Okay, we held our last meeting on March 7th. Police Department Chief Drew had Jack Nineman come and talk about having a village-wide blood drive. Actually, I shouldn't say village-wide, would be area-wide. Blood drive with competition with Grand Rapids between the police departments here or the police department here and the Grand Rapids police. So see who can donate the most or who can talk, and hopefully it's us that we will win. That's not gonna happen, probably July, I think, is the time frame that he seemed to think would probably work, and also work because Chief Drew is going to be the one who is coordinating all of this and making it happen. Find the date and location and all of that good stuff. And I think, are you talking about the school, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's gonna happen at the school, so. Okay, other updates, there weren't any real serious issues. Discussion about whether to keep the squad that we are replacing, whether we'll sell it or keep it here. The fire department didn't have any huge issues either. They also need a new rescue truck, which is probably gonna cost around 80,000. So there was some discussion on that. And that obviously will go to FHR after the public safety has kicked it around a little bit more. Under old business, we talked about corrective action. Well, the corrective actions that had been requested from the fire department in 2021. And so Chief Warden had come forward with what they've accomplished with those corrective actions. And I think about 80% has been completed. So that's good, still working obviously towards 100. He also announced that our assistant chief Craig Kester is retiring on the 1st of April after 30 years. So congratulations to him. And good luck on his retirement. We also discussed Lexapol, which I think most everybody on the board at least realizes it's and if I don't explain it right, you guys correct me. It is digital rules and regulations that come from the state, and both the police department and the fire department have that available for them to use. The police department has a grant that pays for it. We pay for it out of the village budget for the fire department. It's much more applicable to the police department than it is to the fire department. So there's quite a bit of discussion and concern from both the chief and the fire department the rest of the volunteers, paid volunteers in the fire department, about how to best use that. And so Boz has decided to take that on and say, the fire department only needs to deal with so many of those that he feels are applicable to the department, because it's a huge number. I forget, 200 or something. There's some huge number, but we really don't need all of those. They're not all applicable. So that's an ongoing chore that the department has to deal with. Then we had quite a lengthy discussion about the bylaws, and that has been an issue and continues to be. The chief is concerned about the number of people that are kind of lobbying in with comments. And really the bylaws are for the fire department and their internal business and how they operate internally. So I think with the committee, and if the board may become involved at some point too. Now I've lost my train of thought. What was I gonna say? What was I gonna say about that? I think really what we're looking for, we're not looking for those bylaws to mirror what the PFC has, or even what the village has as ordinances, because it's internal. But it needs to reflect when firing, hiring, and discipline, where those issues go. In other words, whether they go to the administrator, whether they go to the PFC, the direction that needs to happen, that needs to be reflected in those bylaws. That's probably all I'm gonna say about that. And if the president wants to have anything more added to that.
Here's the gavel. The only thing I would state different is, the higher fire stuff would go to the PFC. And it would go to the administrator for a review, but, you know, I'm sure you meant that PFC would be the final say, but the administrator would be kind of like the first stop. And present
Okay, I may have stated.
and present it with, like, if the chief was going to get rid of somebody for cause, then he would be there also. But it would maybe, as far as I understand, I had to talk with Boz.
Thoughts about it. Okay. Okay, let's see, and future agenda, we're still dealing with wages a little bit, but that has pretty much gone on to FHR. We also had a short discussion on ways and somehow figuring out how to get younger kids interested in both police and fire, and coordinating that with the school in some way, but we don't have anything specific, and both departments have plenty to do right now, but that is an issue that I think is gonna become more important through the coming close years, actually. So having said that, the next meeting is it's the 6th, actually, which, Chief, I need to talk to you about too. I've changed the date on that, so it's gonna be the 6th of April at 5:15, am I right? 5:15 on April 6th. Is that gonna work?
What day is that?
It's a Thursday.
Okay, that'll be fine.
I need to talk to you about that.
We'll be done by
Alrighty.
the time your fire meeting, I think.
Wednesdays are our meetings.
I was gonna say this
I
is
got all
Thursday,
night
so
Thursday.
we're skipping, we knew we couldn't do that. Any questions or anything?
Is it about what we addressed?
Yes,
Pitts up next,
okay,
because that's the committee you stated you wanted to.
well, I've got one thing for public safety then. So I'll raise my hand again later.
Okay.
If it's okay.
I just said go away.
Okay,
It's actually very appropriate since
Right.
That's your immediate committee.
So I guess I kind of went off on a little rant about the bylaws at the public safety meeting, and I guess it was interpreted as being insubordinate, I guess. I have a lot of emotion and fear about the bylaws and how many people have inputs. And that's all I was expressing. I totally understand. I answer to the village. If the village wants the bylaws updated, we're gonna update the bylaws. It kind of manifested last night. We were going through the bylaws with the PFC, and I don't know, it's 26 pages long or something like that. We made it up to page 1, and somebody got up and walked out, and I think he resigned. I don't know, maybe, I think it was a misunderstanding. He may be back. But not trying to cause drama. That was my fear in all of this, was the creation of drama, and it's kind of blossoming, so.
The one thing that hasn't been said, that has been done with your bylaws, since I moved back home in 1978, and started working with the PD, all boards had approved your bylaws. You presented them to the board. There's no PFC at the time, right, Eric?
Right.
And that, so I heard a couple comments from firemen that, well, we never had to get them, checked out before. That's not true. Yes, you did. The board voted on it.
Right, yeah, we get them. I understand that.
So. Madam Chair, you have any response? If not,
No, I hopefully will continue to work through it in our committee. One more meeting for me anyway, so I think we
can't,
can manage.
okay, I can't say a whole lot now, but I got a call this morning from, Chairman Stewart referenced the meeting last night. And needless to say, I'm glad I was home alone just with the dog. No, I didn't kick him. But I got a little upset, I guess is a polite word, and mainly about the resignation of one of the PFC members, which, by the way, I will be appointing a new member in the April meeting on the 11th. But that disturbed me. I mean, everybody's free to do what they want to do, on resignation. But that disturbed me that this might be just getting a little bit too much out of hand, and all sides intended. I shouldn't use the word side because that means division, but I think we're getting close. And I think that before this board retires on April 18th, I would like to call a private meeting to discuss personnel, and have a rep, mainly you from the fire department, and we just gotta separate the wheat from the chaff. But I'll be in touch with you and Chairman Stewart and the village administrator when he gets back. So Doug Caston is the one, and he was asked again today by Chairman Stewart, and he said, no, this is final. He resigned. He turned in a email to that effect. And I know I'm getting a little carried away because Doug's my neighbor and we're good friends. So, okay, but that's where I'll leave it. Anything else, Sue?
No, that's all that's enough.
Can I speak on something about the bylaws? I don't know.
You wanna say, the same issue is gonna come up again, I'm sure,
Good.
with yours, so
Well,
I'm asking you, can we move it to your committee before your comment, or do you wanna address it to Sue?
well, it's with the
Probably
bylaws.
Okay,
So I created the bylaws. That was part of the action plan that I was assigned by Boz that I needed to revamp, and he assigned me, chief assigned me to do those bylaws. The current bylaws, if anybody's ever seen the current bylaws, it's just a half a dozen pages, kind of mishmash, and that's what's
We've gotten
approved right now. And that was what was approved by the board. So me trying to future-proof it, I went and I found a bunch of different people or whatever, and I just brain dumped and just typed. And there's errors, there's all sorts of different things on these, but I tried to elaborate on a lot of the different sections to kind of to future-proof it, so we don't have to keep going over and reinventing the wheel. So those were never approved. I gave those to Chief a year ago. Chief being brand new has a lot of other things that he's been working on, and those didn't take priority. So those were there. Then Boz asked for them. They're not even approved by our department yet. You know, the plant, the only approved bylaws we have are the current 6 pages that you guys have. The new ones need to be gone through, and how we've always done it, gone through, rewritten, updated, whatever, by the officers, then by the entire department, and then it's brought forth to the village for reading and whatever. So where the I don't know what the word is, everybody getting their honeys in a bundle is, and what Chief's worry is there's so many hands in it right now, but we haven't even completed stage 1 yet. Well, we've completed stage 1, we created them, but stage 2 is to approve and make our changes internally before we bring them up to here. Well, now Boz wants them, he got a copy, all the trustees got a copy, and that's putting the cart way ahead of the horse. We haven't even approved them yet.
I need to have a conversation then with all of you, because as far as I know, we didn't understand that. I didn't understand that.
So I think that's where Doug's
So-
getting a little upset, the PFC's getting a little upset, the fire department's getting upset, and Boz is maybe getting upset because everybody wants their piece, but we ultimately haven't even created a product yet. It's created, but it hasn't been approved.
And this may not be time for this discussion. I probably shouldn't even ask it actually, but my question is, why not?
Well, the Chief had all sorts of
Well, I
other things
know,
going
I-
on.
I realize
He
that.
just handed out the bylaws, February's meeting, the first Wednesday of February. That's the first time that anybody else besides Chief or myself had seen a copy of them. And really, I haven't read them in over a
And so
year.
you're saying none of what we got is,
What you
what the
got is what I
committee
gave to him. He didn't make any changes. Nobody's pencil ink,
Okay.
nothing.
okay, so really it is what you wrote, but it does not have, and it's just a few things actually that Boz inserted in that, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's what you had us, I mean, that's what we were looking at.
I think the correct process
Okay.
would have been is to have it approved, since there are bylaws, and it was just brought out that those are internal
Yeah.
laws inside the fire department. That we approve those first before we hand them out. I think
Okay.
prematurely Boz got them, gave them out to everybody, everybody read them, has had comments,
Well, he may have
concerns.
been forcing something to happen, but I don't wanna read his mind. I do not know yet what the motivation was. I would guess what the fire department needs to do then is look at them and see what their comments are and say, yes, thumbs up, no, we're gonna start all over, or
Yeah,
ask
and
you
that
to write.
process I think
and
was gonna
I
happen.
can't
just-
imagine that's needed, really.
So that's my 2 cents.
So Eric asked to make the statement, to answer to this committee, so. But save your questions, because now we'll be going, whenever Chairman Mitchell is done, we'll be going to Ted.
I was just gonna answer Chairman Mitchell's question.
Quickly, please.
You asked what took so long. That was my fault because I was newly appointed chief and I didn't think it was appropriate for me to be updating bylaws and things like that until I really had a strong grasp of how things were
And I get
working and
that.
supposed to
I
work
get
and things
that.
like that. So that's why the delay, and I apologize for that.
We'll have to be continued.
Speaking of which, without objection from any board member, I think, I do have a few good thoughts, and Madam Chairman, I would highly encourage you at your April 6th meeting at 5:15 to have this as an agenda item, so it can be discussed without time limitations and everything. Anybody disagree with that? Of course, all board members being, like, come down and hear it, ask a question as a public citizen, so. Is that okay?
Yep, of course,
Great.
of course.
Fini?
Mhm. Done.
Small French word, I know. Alrighty, moving on to PIP, Chairman Saylor.
Yeah, we met March 8th, and discussed, I think it was the second time that we looked at chapter 10, which is the public nuisance. Very interesting stuff. We went through, there was some pending changes on some things. All the updates for the second time of us looking through it are marked in red to include the definition of a noxious weed. So all that stuff's in there. If you guys have any questions, this is the second month that we've had it. I don't know if you guys have read it or we took out a bunch of stuff. So with that, I will make a motion to approve the changes of chapter 10 and to discuss updates to the outdated portion.
Chairman Saylor, have a second?
No, I'm sorry. Hold on. I got the wrong, I think I might have the wrong chapter 10.
The chapter 9,
On the
To
agenda.
approve changes to village ordinance chapter 9, but isn't it
it
chapter
is
10?
chapter 10.
So that needs to be changed to a 10. So I will,
It's chapter 10?
it's chapter 10.
Okay, you made the motion. Lon second. All right, now you're gonna do your amendment. You have to change it letter or number?
Well, I just have to, on the official agenda, Boz has chapter 9, but it's chapter 10
Okay,
from our meeting minutes. So the amended motion will be motion to approve the changes of the village ordinance, chapter 10. And let me just make sure,
Correct.
seeing he's got orderly conduct, but it should be public nuisances.
I have public nuisances.
okay, I think the best way to do this is you withdraw your.
I withdraw.
motion. Lon, you withdraw your second.
I do.
Okay, now you reread it or
Okay.
rewrite it and then make sure the clerk has it and then make your motion.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve the changes to village ordinance, chapter 10, public nuisances. These changes will mostly administrative and include the elimination of outdated language and terminology.
I second it.
Second, same set, Chairman Saylor, second by Radke. Clerk, would you please read that back? Make sure we have everything.
Okay. Motion to approve changes to village ordinance chapter 10, public nuisance. These changes were mostly administrative and included the elimination of outdated language and terminology.
Chairman Saylor, is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, we have a, motion and a second discussion. Hearing no request to speak, all those in favor of the motion as read by the chairman, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed? That motion carries.
And then the chicken stuff, we had a resident that emailed me a couple months ago. I told her about the meeting. She was unable to attend last month. And then I told her about the new meeting. She was unable to attend this time, so we just tabled it. There was no discussion on that. We talked about TIF district and some creative TIF funding, I'll say. About trying to create a list of some incentives to have somebody open up a business or run a business. I think that's kind of what it was, like an à la carte menu. More to come on that. We're still talking about that. We tabled the Nepco Lake study contract. As per Eric, he told us to hold off on it. And then we had a discussion on fire department with chapter 4 and 5. About an audit. And I think more is gonna come with that, but there was some questions, and myself being confused and whatever, so I think Chief has something to say on that.
About, if you object, we don't do it, but can the chief speak now?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief, but I'll probably ramble a little bit. I understand there was some questions about our fundraising, specifically our account that we hold our fundraising funds in. Some some terms were thrown around, audits and legal documentation. There seems to be a little bit of mistrust here from where I'm sitting. I don't know why in the previous night during public safety, there wasn't a peep about it. But the very next night, there was all this public pressure to figure out how much money we have in our account. I wasn't at the finance meeting. I don't know exactly what was said, but I just have some questions that I know you can't answer me, but so maybe you can treat them rhetorically, or maybe we can talk about them during our next public safety meeting. You know, I guess why now? Why all this public pressure now? Who are the members of the public who need to know this information? And why the mistrust that we're not handling our account properly? It's legal. We filed all our forms legally. We pay taxes on our funds. It's a privately held account. I guess I should have back up for a minute. Years back, the fire department did some fundraising. This is back before my time, all our times. The public did some fundraising, and there was an account with the village that was a line in our budget. And that's where the money went. And I guess the village decided to spend some of that money on non-fire department related stuff. And there was a big uproar, and the fire department formed a private charitable organization account. And that's where now we keep all our money, and it's a private account. We don't disclose it to the public. So I guess I just have a lot of questions. Where's the public pressure coming from? If so, please assure them that we are doing things legally, properly. And I don't know, I'm at the risk of being, again, insubordinate and kicking out drama, which I don't want to do. That's why I'm questioning all this. Why now? Why the drama now? You know, we are often volunteered to do fundraising. Hey, could you come to the Fun Fest and sell beer? It'd be a great fundraiser. And hey, can you come to the Lions Club fundraiser and sell beer and food? And we're having these bands and these community events. Can you come and sell beer and food and, be a great fundraiser for you? And then, whoa, hang on. What's with this fundraising you guys have going on? Now we're gonna have to audit you and charge you $1,500 a year to make sure your records are right. And I don't know, it seems like a lot of talk's going on behind my back, and I'm just questioning why.
As president, here's my mallet again. In going to speak, number one, I strongly disagree, and I think I expressed the feeling of all 7 of us, that there is no mistrust on this board for that.
Good.
The things that were asked, and I will let Chairman Grundon pick up anything that I missed, are legal questions. And speaking of which, then look who walks through the door.
Do you mind if I take my seat, Mr. President?
You want to come up here?
I just happened to notice that.
You only get 3 minutes tonight. Anyway. And then the public, if there's any public out there, I can also say that the trustees on this board, I almost said my trustees, but they're not my trustees, don't deal in hearsay. In my 6 years sitting in this chair, I have not heard any hearsay, because it's part of my job to make sure we don't start talking about hearsay. I can't say anything else, but those 2 things I disagree with. And the other thing is, we don't want to start developing any paranoia, because then nothing's going to get done. We're going to be back to this divide and conquer thing. So I will let trustee Grundon speak if she wants, then Chairman Mitchell, and then this will be carried over to Chairman Mitchell's committee, correct? In April, okay? Thank you.
The conversation that we had was on topic, on agenda, and it was specifically as I had messaged Eric earlier and Boz, that as we were working through the ordinances, we needed to update that part of the ordinance that specifically already says about the audit. So that was the context and the origination of the conversation, that as we're working through these chapters, trying to update the ordinances. I guess it's confusing the defensiveness. So nobody said the fire department would have to pay $1,500. Boz said the cost of it. So then with that, and he didn't say to the fire department, which my assumption would be if the village audits those, it would be at the village's cost. So the conversation and context was that we wanted to explore that. Was it worthy of this? And what did we need to do to update the ordinances? And it was maybe 10 minutes conversation on that topic. Eric brought more and I did respond, but there wasn't like a random, none of that. It was, in context on the agenda topic and from there. And nobody wants you guys to feel overly scrutinized, but on the flip side, we got to find that somewhere in the middle. This completely side note, but I was reading Grand Rapids strategic planning for their fire department, and I found it really interesting that one of their challenges was kind of like this mutual lack of trust. And it got me thinking, and when I made a few phone calls, it's a pretty common relational challenge in fire departments and boards and things like that. And I agree with you, there must be a way to minimize that.
Chairman Mitchell.
My only comment was, I'm gonna put it on the agenda for our next meeting and try to lay out all of the facts. I think with your input as well to it. So, yeah.
Chairman Saylor, I'm sorry, I kind of overstepped. I said turn it over to you and then I started babbling again, so take the reins back.
Does anybody else have anything to say about it?
Can I ask a question for anybody? If it's a charitable account, so do you guys, is there like, was it 503C? I don't know.
501.
That one,
C3.
yeah, sure. Is that what you guys operate under for that account?
Can I answer?
Oh, I don't know. Whoever knows the answer.
Speak back and forth, so.
I don't know the answer, so
I don't know what I mean.
It's a-
Oh, I would like, yeah.
I don't know specifically, what form we're filed under. Our accountant takes care of all that, and she assured me that everything's been done legally.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
Okay. Some emails on boat rules. I did not get that. The only issue I have is the next meeting is scheduled for 5 April, but I would like to reschedule that. I know I said I was gonna try to zoom in over my vacation, but so I don't know what days would work with you guys, or if we could.
Well, after the
Figure out
last
that.
meeting, we'll go on without you. That's my input. I'm open.
What day are you looking at?
I can make pretty much anytime. Depends on you.
Pick a date.
It's gotta be before the 11th.
Yeah,
Public safety gave up Tuesday night, can I say that?
so I'm back the 8th, so the 10th is the only day but that's Easter Monday.
Bring a birthday cake and I'll come.
We talked about that at your
I have
meeting.
I know.
Is it?
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
It's the truth.
So if we could do it Monday at whatever time you'd like, I'll let you pick the time since it's your birthday.
At
If there's any motions that come out, I'm sorry, Caleb. The clerk just advised me they
You got
won't
it,
make the
24.
agenda.
I don't think we'll have any motions because it'll be the first time looking at those chapters. So it'll be a pen and ink and then we'll come back.
Is that all we have is the chapters?
Yeah.
What time in the 10th? 4 o'clock?
3:40, since I'm turning 34.
3:40.
3:40?
That's a good number.
That's better than 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll get done by 4
Trustee
o'clock,
McGregor.
right?
I appreciate that.
So that'll be 3:40 on April 10th.
Okay, April at 3:15, 40 hours. He's gonna look at the film. I gotta be good on my military facts here. All right,
And that's all I have.
okey dokey. Any questions further for Eric? Okay, Chairman Mansell, FHR, please.
Okay, we met March 9th. We had a pretty good discussion on the village employee satisfaction survey. I think that's all back here. Yes. We discussed as a committee to maybe just do an employee satisfaction survey, just to get kind of a baseline where our employees are, and how they're feeling, if they need anything. So that, brought up some pretty good topics. You guys can look through and kind of see the answers. We also discussed the wage study that Boz is working on. It's about 60% complete and will be ready for the next meeting in April. The initial data reveals that the village would require $25,000 to bring all employees up in 2023-2024 wage level. And that's just getting everybody to what the average is for our village size and what's kind of the going rate is, if you will. Other discussion on continuity of operations, had some staff recommendations for a potential part-time employee to assist in the front. And just kind of like what happens if somebody is out, takes a long vacation, gets hurt, surgery, something like, so like how would our village function with somebody gone? Cause it can't just, some of the work just can't not be done. So what's kind of the backup plan? So just kind of revising that. You know, and I kind of said something like a sub plan for teachers. You kind of just have a folder ready to go. That way it's easy to navigate. That way somebody stepping in can kind of at least figure it out, and go from there. President Sir flew in, Trustee Radke brought up the option of asking the retired villager, Karen Field, to see if she would serve in emergency circumstances. I think that is still pending, if there was a conversation or not. I don't know. Did you have a conversation? Oh, okay. So, probably formalize that a little bit better and send her to trainings that she might need for that. Otherwise, anybody have any questions? Okay, April 6th at 4:30 is our next meeting.
Okay, any questions? No, hearing none. Okay, thank you, Chairman Mansell. Planning Commission did not meet. Nepco Lake Transition Planning, Boz is not here. Without objection, Eric, is there anything, I'd like to go off table to Eric. Is there anything of importance that the board should know at this time?
Sure, next Tuesday, March 21st, there is a public hearing on the Lake District, which is required by Wisconsin State Statute 33, at 8:30 in the morning in the Wood County meeting room. Immediately following that, the entire board will meet and make a decision on the formation of a Lake District. And we're very hopeful and positive about the result of that. And I really appreciate how quickly things have gone, which will allow us to have the interim group of commissioners meet, formulate a budget, et cetera, get the budget approved at the first annual meeting so that that can be part of the November tax assessment for the following year, which means we'll be in line to get funds the following year on schedule. So much appreciated to Port Edwards on their continued support of that. Boss spoke at the last meeting of the seat committee, at the Judicial and Legislative Committee in a very positive way. And we're looking forward to next Tuesday.
Any questions for Eric? Also, I don't know if you mentioned it, but you guys have a meeting here at the MBC on the 22nd at noon, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I noticed in the calendar here, it talked about tomorrow on paper, but in the website, it is the 22nd, and that's what we discussed. So it is the 22nd, I believe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, March 22nd, he's got.
Yes, thank you.
That's correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alrighty, before I retire, I just gotta read this once. We used to just have old business, nothing there, new business, if somebody had something there, but I always like his terminology, so bear with me. Boz, if you're listening, it's in your honor, buddy. Floor is open to any trustee to discuss any old topics with updates in committee or issue referral and recommendations. No motions can be proposed. That is correct. However, the discussion is limited to, do we want to take this to a committee or not?
I have a question about that.
Yeah,
So my question is, do we still pay community media yearly to broadcast our meetings?
do we pay them?
We don't? Okay, so the question that I'm getting from the Kesters on Brentwood are, we used to, all the recorded meetings would be, well, not all of them, but the board meetings were recorded and put on the community website. If we're
Right.
not doing that, that's fine. I brought it up in January, and then in February, I sent him another email because the guy from community media emailed me, Joe Bachman, I think
Right,
that's his name, right? Emailed me and asked where the link was or where the thing was or whatever. And then Boz said that the county is trying to create some YouTube thing and it would take a week. Well, that was February 4th and it's March 14th. So I know that there's people out there that are asking where these videos are. And if we're not gonna do it, why are we being recorded all the time anyways? So if we're getting recorded, I'd like to see them up there, and he said he was gonna do it, so.
I agree 100%. And when I was up for the interview for the primary, I told Joe, I says, what do we have to do to get them on? Because I get a lot of calls from people that want to see it on channel 985, and he told me everything, and I know he called Boz, but that's all I could say.
I know one of the big things with the old board is the thought that things were happening kind of shady, and then that's why we went to recording, and now we're not, we're recording for his personal files or whatever, but we're not uploading them for the public to see. So to me, that looks like we're trying to hide something, so.
I agree with everything you're saying. I think that, it would be a good
So I
question.
just wanted noted in the minutes.
Right.
I brought it up again.
Okay. And I think which committee would that be?
There,
Oh,
there's,
go ahead, yeah. I'm sorry.
there is a YouTube channel with some videos on it.
So
Information
it's
technology.
started.
It has started, yeah,
Mhm.
They have started?
yes.
Well, then Joe fulfilled what he wanted to do.
Yep, you
Is
have
it
to
Joe
look
or
up-
is it Coney?
It's through
It's
Bob.
Not the
Port,
county.
It's Port, it's like if you,
Cause I did a search and all I saw was stuff from 21 when Dana was still sitting there eating cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hold on.
I
That was all
watched
that
them
was
from
there,
the,
too.
there's actually a
Yeah,
YouTube
you're
channel,
right.
I'm
so we
looking,
gotta follow it through on getting it out
So then we
there.
gotta put it on Facebook or whatever and post it.
yeah, there's an actual,
What are you laughing at?
Is it information technology yours?
The record book.
so it is. up
How
and
far
it
does it
is-
go back?
Yeah.
It's got January and February on there. Right now, I think they were trying to, there's something compatible with the video, trying to get
And
the
who
last one up.
supplies that information?
He told me in the email it would be Wood County.
I think,
I don't know why the county's gonna get, even
No,
though
I-
they take care of our stuff now, that's something that I think as a county board member.
So I don't
Doesn't
know,
matter who
but
takes
it's
care
there. It's January and February are there.
Would you, Chairman Saylor, would you follow up on that, please? Just touch base with Oz and just see, because both of us are getting calls, and it's kind of hard to find it out. Yeah, in the old days, we didn't pay a penny for that because that came out of our
FCC.
franchise.
Mhm. That could be put on the sign out there,
Ooh, good call.
because yeah, the public doesn't know where to find it.
Okay, any old business? Got a lot of action reading the whole thing, didn't I?
Well, I got new business too.
Okay, new business. Floor is open to any trustee to discuss any late breaking news or issues that need to be referred to a committee for discussion/action. No motions can be proposed. Once again, that discussion is limited to, should we move it to pit committee or not? Okay, I'm done. Anybody have it? Yeah, here we go.
Commercial. I talked to Joel Bachman today about when the trustee and presidential trustee forum or interviews. His response was he's not sure if they're gonna be able to pull it off. So I'm not sure what we as a village wanna do about that. If we want to maybe try to invite the league here and do that here through us, seeing how we do have a video and
What
all
was his
that.
reason? Sorry for interrupting.
I don't know.
That's the league one of those, ain't it?
I do happen to know, yeah. it's
Yeah,
time.
but bring it's the time thing, so it's just they're running short on time with all the other council races, county races, stuff like that, so. What one suggestion is to rerun the trustee interviews from February. And that was all he gave me, or try to shoot the new ones, but we'd all have to be in by like early next week at the latest to get them edited and stuff like that.
Okay, so if they want to run the primaries again, fine, there's only one change to make there. But I'm just kind of partial to who's gonna sit here.
Right.
You know
And I
what
would like, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm just wondering if we don't have that option there, can we do something here, bring the league in here and do it? Cause we do have Mabel. I guess, what would be I'm not sure. I don't know if that has to go to
Not my
committee.
call.
So one
Yes.
option that we could do is through Nakusa, our announcements, our daily announcements, and they have an NHSN is what they call it. And they record a weekly show, basically. And they have the cameras, they have the editing software, they have all of that. If we could get, and it would cost anything. If we could get a list of questions, 5, 6, 7 questions, or maybe even from the league, whatever the questions would be, I don't think that my coworker wouldn't have a problem coming in here, recording it, editing it, or whatever, in that same kind of style that we would do it down there, and then we could put it on our YouTube page ourselves.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you wanna do like an actual, how we used to do it was like the actual forum, I mean, just.
I think the forum and the time sensitivity aspect of it and the forum, like one of the kids that Trenton Maury, he records the basketball games. Could just keep it simple. There doesn't need to be a bunch of time of editing and all of that. And I find the forums to be more,
I like the individual ones better, because then we're not following each other, where I agree with Betsy, and then you elaborate, or I agree with Eric and elaborate. You have a list of questions, you make your own opinion, and then you move on. But by saying that, I also like the editing, because when I was sitting down there last year or whatever, I rambled on, and I'm like, holy crap, this is gonna be an hour long or whatever, and he just chopped me off,
yeah.
or whatever, so.
I can find that hard to believe, but anyway, on a serious note, the board has nothing to do with that, so, we don't have to vote, it's not gonna be village
Right.
money.
I'm just trying to figure out an idea of formulation.
No, that's good, so, anybody on the board that wants to help you,
Okay.
or give you guys ideas, but you guys are gonna have to kind of run with it.
Okay.
My feelings.
That's good. That's all, I think that's all I had. I just got that email, so.
So with the emails that everybody has received, and since Nick's here, maybe he can elaborate on some things. I'm having a hard time trying to wrap my head around it, because in the 8 years that I've been on the village board as a trustee in the trustee role, I have not made more money than what has been requested, and you've always said 51% or whatever that number is. I've always abstained from anything that benefited me, but now it's coming down as we can't talk about anything with the fire department. So with that being said, if you are collecting any money or you're a retired person or whatever, so that might include Lon and you and me and Betsy, that has 3 people making decisions on police and fire. So I just want some clarification.
Right, but Lon and I, as policemen, Lon is still active with the county and with Nakusa, correct?
Correct.
If that prevents him from being this stuff, the emails that came out for the city in Nakusa, correct me, Nick, if I'm wrong, or the county. But there's nothing to say being retired from the village that we can't be here. And the money we get from the village now is the same way you get it,
Yep.
being at the meetings.
In the email, it said if you were a retired police, even not active, or fireman, we wouldn't be able to talk about anything, but Nickel.
Yeah,
Should have been clarified.
If I may, I want to clarify that. So first of all, the conflict of interest rules that are in the statute are primarily based on financial benefit. So the statutory restrictions are against voting on anything that personally benefits you or a family member, or somebody that you're directly connected to in an unusual way, in a way that's different from the rest of the people on the board. So this does not affect Lon, as to use him as a good example. Lon isn't prohibited from dealing with any issues related to the fire department in Port Edwards unless it affects some financial aspect of what Port Edwards is paying you. So, for example, if Lon is receiving some benefit, some financial benefit from the village, or would be set to, like, hey, we're gonna decide, hey, we're gonna make a one-time $50,000 payout to all former living police officers in that are from Port Edwards.
Support that motion.
Not a motion, just. But then he wouldn't be able to vote on that because he would directly benefit from it, as would Mr. Zerke. So that's the being a former police officer or fireman or ambulance or whatever it is, doesn't impact your ability in most circumstances to either participate in discussion or vote. The circumstances where it applies is if there's a financial benefit. Also, one thing that I guess I would note is that regarding non-financial, from Robert's Rules of Order, it states that no member should vote on a question in which he or she has a direct personal or pecuniary interest not common to other members of the organization. So that includes personal interest, and I'd note that the village has adopted in its ordinances Robert's Rules of Order. So there can't be any voting on any matter that you have a personal interest in. That probably creates some difficulty with the fire department, because if you have a direct personal interest in it, so discipline, for example, if you have, and as I understand it, you personally and a spouse, Betsy, if there's a question of discipline, something comes to the board from the Police and Fire Commission, you shouldn't vote on it. And when I say shouldn't, I mean, is it against the rules? Well, it's against Robert's Rules, and we've adopted Robert's Rules, so it's technically in violation of the ordinance, and you can't do that. In terms of discussion is a difficult thing to really pin down. I mean, there are circumstances where even discussing the matter is really problematic because of maybe an impact that somebody's able to have because of their position within the organization. Or using some sort of, I guess, unusual access they might have or ability to convince people. But I think it's a little restrictive to say that you can't discuss it at all, because that, again, that puts you in a position where it's really impossible to provide any perspective. I'd imagine there are some times where trustees may specifically want perspective from somebody who has that experience. But again, there can't be any voting on it. And I would again strongly urge, if there's any doubt, and I think this is where the administrator is coming from, if there's any doubt, you should really avoid being part of those questions as much as possible, just because it creates, in addition to a conflict of interest if you vote, an appearance of a conflict of interest if, say, people who can't vote are leading the discussion on matters. So, but for clarification, it really is it's primarily about voting, and finances is where the statutory element of it comes from, but there is a personal element as well. So that's where, when I had sent a couple emails and clarified a few things with Boz as well, where matters of discipline, I think, are easy to cite as being personal matters that really have an impact. So a lot of police and fire commission recommendations are probably going to, or may run afoul of this. So, and of course, anything related to raises, pay and whatnot. So does that help clarify the point a little bit? And again, I think it's hard to anticipate every possible situation. There are two things you can do if there's a question about it. Number one is, you can talk to me and I might be able to clarify things. You can also ask for an opinion from the Ethics Commission, which the statute in chapter 19, and I forget the explicit or the specific reference, but in chapter 19, it states that anybody can ask for an opinion from the Ethics Commission. So you don't have to do that formally. You can do that privately if you want. I'd suggest that if something comes up in a meeting, that a more formal request be made, or that the committee or the board, as the case may be, decides that a person is going to solicit an opinion, or that the board will, and they report back. But anybody can get an opinion from the Ethics Commission at any time. And the Ethics Commission can either issue formal or informal opinions, meaning, if you just want a little bit of advice, they'll give it to you off the record, more or less, which can be really helpful. And I don't discourage that if people have any questions about it. And it can be about you, it can be about somebody else, or whatever it is. Just, I would encourage, be as clear with them as possible so that they can give you better advice. The same reason I asked for people to be transparent with your attorney, even though people aren't always that, as our former police officers well know. But also, if there's a question that comes up in this setting or in the committee setting, try to be transparent about the fact that you think an ethics opinion is necessary, because then, there's no benefit to anybody to hide the fact that somebody is concerned about these things. Did you have a follow-up, Mr. President?
Before I go to Sue, she had her hand up before me, so. April 18th, reorganizational meeting starts at 6. The last 3 or 4 years, I've gotten you to come down and speak to the board after the new board is seated and sworn in. And I would really like you to come down at them, even though I won't be president. I would like to get a commitment before you soon. And I think this part of the emails that have gone out that Eric brought up, and would be a very, very good topic for if there's any new people to join the board, to hear from you.
I'm able to do that. I can see my calendar right now, although I'd appreciate confirmation from the new president that
the regular reorganizational meeting, since there's no business conducted, just swearing in the appointments. That starts at 6, so we're generally done by 6:20. So could you block out a half hour? Because I think this needs more than just a 15-minute presentation. A real good time for the board members to ask questions.
I have
Okay,
one, yep, I've
is
got
that
it.
okay with you?
Set aside.
I mean, you can still ask a couple tonight, but. Okay, I jabbered enough. Neighbor, it's all yours.
Okay, I just was gonna comment, and granted, I read through those ordinances that came through in the emails and stuff, that I assume were taken from Robert's Rules of Order now that you say that, but it sounded to me like when I read those, that it was saying that discussion of issues related personally shouldn't, you know, that they shouldn't enter in, that a trustee should not enter into discussion even.
Yeah, well, it should, I mean, again, I think that there's a difference between what is a statutory and what is a
Yeah, and I'm
conflict,
sure
of-
that's
what's a conflict of interest under
Right.
the statutes and common law, and what is adopted by ordinance, and then further, what is the appearance of a conflict of interest that might not literally rise to that level if there's a, say, well, I guess as an attorney, I always ask myself, what would a judge say about it if asked, right? So there are factual questions about some of these things. Again, I always urge people to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, even if there's any question about it, because this is supposed to be an open forum. Municipal governance and hopefully any governance is supposed to be transparent by definition, right? And Wisconsin has codified that in chapter 19 under its open meetings and open records laws. Everything that you do at the municipal level should be fair game, in terms of people should be able to see what the people who serve them are doing. And I think, you know, history is littered with examples of how it can go wrong, to not do that. So, I mean, when in doubt, I recommend avoiding it, but, you know, I think there are certainly circumstances where despite a potential conflict of interest, somebody is going to have valuable input that's actively solicited by the other members. And again, if you're not voting on it and you're very clear, I mean, if you have a conflict of interest and you don't disclose it and you discuss and then you abstain at the end and it's not clear why you're doing it, that's not appropriate either. It should be clear, hey, I know that I have an interest because of X, Y, and Z, and or whatever. And then, you know, nevertheless, I appreciate having an opportunity to say a few things, understanding that, you know, maybe I know something about this that others don't, maybe not, whatever. Just be clear about that sort of thing.
Okay.
But
I mean, I see the difficulty of not having discussion about it and having, I mean, we have 4 people right now at this table that could have a conflict of interest.
yeah, I
in
mean,
something, and so that's,
it's a good point, because you could be in situations where you don't actually have a quorum voting
Yeah,
as a result of that. And that's something that, you know, and then, of course, if you don't have a quorum because of those sorts of things, I mean, if it really is that, I don't know, pervasive, for lack of a better way of putting it, the conflicts of interest, then I mean, give me a call and we'll have to find a way to do it. But if we're talking about purely, discussion and input, I think that in some circumstances it's okay, but there.
And the conflict of interest doesn't, I'm gonna pick on Chairman Saylor, does not include voting on a fire truck purchase where, because if he's a fireman, he's not building fire trucks, you know, there's no personal gain to be had. He can vote on a fire truck.
If your name isn't on the title, then I think,
It's not on the note, it's not on the title, it's not on the note.
He still won't do it. And then also, could you add home rule to that? Because home rule is a term that, correct me if I'm wrong, in townships and villages, smaller people have certain, I call them perks, that were not held to the same rigid, as cities, you know, and stuff of the, what's the word I'm looking for?
well, I think part of the reason that that's the case too is for reasons that are described here. I mean, obviously, there's a limited pool of people compared to a large city to to serve, unfortunately, it can be difficult under the best circumstances to find enough people to be willing to take the.
So if you could
The
include
job,
that,
so.
I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I know, that, Mr. President, that you are a big fan of the concept of home rule from my past experiences, all for reasons that are entirely on the up and up, I can say, on the
You're
record.
gonna miss me, aren't you? Don't
I'm
answer
gonna take the fifth.
that. I'll no longer feel obligated to take you out to lunch, let's put it that way. Anything for Nick? Before we move on and finish her up? There's no more old or new business, Eric, so. Report from the administrator, you can read his monthly report, a snapshot he calls it. We pretty much discussed the reorganizational meeting. I see no need to go into the strategic meetings, A, because he's not here, and B, that's all brought up. He will, I think he's looking at the Saturday after the reorganizational meeting, the last I think I heard. Did you hear anything? But he'll bring that up in the next committee meetings, I'm sure. We can work on that. Clerk treasurer, please. Okay. Trustee comments? Go ahead, Sue.
I have one short one. I'm glad that the Port Road bike trail is coming up for discussion again. Just to say, no matter where it goes, I'm glad it's on the agenda.
Amen, sister. There's a couple close calls out there.
Right.
Anybody else? Okay, you wanna run through, there's nothing really, we kind of touched base with all the changes on the meetings, the pit change. And,
Public safety, I'm not sure, is that correct?
yeah, you got 5:15 on April 6th.
Oh, that's correct, yeah. Okay.
Everybody else, Chairman, you're all set to go. And, oh, Nick, if possible, I know it's a Tuesday night, you might be down in Coosa, but on the 18th for the reorg, could you be here from the get-go? In case questions that come up.
From 6 until.
6.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I don't think I'm, if I may, I don't wanna, but, some of you may know, some may not. I have 2 partners now, one of whom also practices a little bit of municipal practice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The practical impact may be that I know that I'm requested to be here less often than I am in Nakusa.
Yes, we
However,
will take one of your understudies.
well, I was actually thinking that it wouldn't be necessary for Port Edwards to be to have to suffer that, given that although Mr. Brewing's very capable, when I need to be here, he may be able to fill in for me in Nakusa, and very, very occasionally vice versa. But I'm not going anywhere, so I mean, unless you're finding it like that. So if there's any concern about that, that's not an issue. But I wanted to just raise that as a possibility. There may be some point at which, if I can't be reached for whatever reason, he will eventually be briefed on enough of the village matters to be able to answer some straightforward questions, although going through that whole file cabinet I have may take some time.
Very good. Without objection, I will declare the March 14th board meeting adjourned at 8:18 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Chief, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Eric, thank you. Gary, always good to see you.